Bé, per acabar el dia d'avui, aquest dia...
So, to close this very intense day, Satish and his son Mukti are going to have a dialogue between them of about 30 minutes. So, Satish, Mukti, please.
Perhaps we would start talking to each other a little, and then we would like audience to ask questions. If I can ask Mukti, that when you are working for environment and low carbon lifestyle, and that seems to make you also very happy. And lots of people have been asking, what makes you happy? In addition to working for the environment, what else makes you happy?
Thank you. Tears make me happy. Today I've cried a lot of tears. I've been very touched. I think that what they were saying earlier, that tears make your heart bigger and there's more space for happiness. So we need some tears to grow the heart to make a bigger space for happiness. I consider myself one of the most selfish people in the world. And I pursue my own selfish interests so intensely that I've made a science out of my own happiness. And I found I can buy things, I can earn money, and I lived like a king in India for 5 months because 1,000 euros in England is worth 10,000 euros in India, so I traveled like a king. It didn't make me that happy. I've also drunk a lot of alcohol, dabbled with a few drugs, had quite a lot of sex, some of which made me happy. But I noticed that there's one thing which made me a lot more happy. I can buy something and I get happiness times 1x. But when somebody gave me a gift, my lodger in my house made me a birthday cake.
Yeah.
And she's not my family, she's not even a very good friend. She had no reason to make me a birthday cake. She made me a birthday cake. And when I got that birthday cake, my happiness was 10x.
Really, yeah.
So I realized that gifts make me so much more happy than buying something for myself. So that how do I get more gifts? And they have to be not earned. If they're earned gifts, they only give me 2x. It has to be completely spontaneous gift for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I get that, then I get 10x happiness. So how can I help with that? I have to do more.
Yeah.
Spontaneous gifts.
What is the best way to get the gift?
To give.
To give.
To give spontaneously, just for no reason. That's the thing that makes me happiest.
That's wonderful. Now, these are, majority of them are teachers here. And we had young people here sitting in a panel, young students, talking about their school. Can you tell us a little bit about your schooling?
Yeah. I'm very, very lucky, my father, and we're very good friends these days. Almost best friends. We weren't always best friends. Maybe we'll tell you a little bit that we had maybe 10 years of quite a lot of fighting. But one of the wonderful gifts that my father gave me is that he, with 9 other families, started a school. And I had 6 of the richest years of my life at that school. And at that school, we spent half the time doing academic subjects and half the time doing practical subjects. And so in some of the classes, I would help the local farmer's son with the maths. And then after school, he would break down my motorbike into all the smallest parts and show me how to clean out the carburetor. And so there was respect for everybody, because there was some subject that everybody could excel at. So there was a lot of respect. There wasn't people who were considered stupid in that school, or people who were considered more intelligent. Everyone was respected for something. And they had one of Satish's friends, a very clever headmaster. And at the beginning of term, we would have one whole week just to discuss the curriculum. And he would sit us down, say, "What do you want to learn?" We'd say, and someone said, "I want to learn mechanics." It's a farmer's son who has to fix tractors. Someone else, "I want to learn building." Someone else says, "I want to learn technical drawing." So they cleverly, this teacher, Colin Hodges, cleverly got the children to start saying what they wanted to learn. And then he said, for mechanics, maybe, do you think it's useful to use mathematics for mechanics? Okay, yeah, mathematics. And is it useful to have good communication skills, to talk to people on the farm or write letters? Yes, okay, English is useful. So they very cleverly got the children to decide. And I always had a real struggle, because in my timetable, I couldn't fit in all the subjects that I wanted to study into my 1 week, because there was 36 subjects on offer, and I learnt Sanskrit and building and mechanics and farming and gardening, and there was cheese making, basket making, shoe making, and also academic subjects.
And cow milking.
And I got my A-levels in maths and physics, communications, no problem. I got a degree in communications, so you don't need to just learn academic subjects at school to get a good degree. In fact, I went to visit Eton, one of the most famous schools in England, and one of the most expensive private schools. And at Eton, every day from lunchtime onwards, the whole afternoon is pure sport. And they know that makes the children perform best. So, so thank you for this great gift of the school.
Okay, the small school, yeah.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm still young enough to be facing the challenges of life, and sometimes it's very difficult. And so you are one of those great kind of experts who make things look easy, and you make life look easy, and you've done many things in your life. But can you tell me, were there one or two particular times in your life that were the most challenging times that you can remember that you'd be willing to share?
Yes. One of the most challenging time for me was when I was a monk and I read a book, autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi. And it was such engaging book. It was telling something which was not quite part of my life. And Gandhi was saying that how many people can become a monk? Spirituality should be for everybody. And so that challenged me. And then that night, after reading the book, I had a dream. And Mahatma Gandhi came in my dream. And he was standing on the top of a sand dune. And I was standing below the sand dune. And he was saying in my dream that you don't have to give up the world to practice spirituality. Spirituality should be for everybody. Therefore, make the world a beautiful place. Help to make the world a beautiful place. The world is not sinful. The world is not bad. It's beautiful, and make it even more beautiful. And that dream was so powerful. I even now remember the dream. And so next day, I thought that I can, perhaps Gandhi is still there. I was 18 years old. And the dream was so strong, so clear, so vivid. I didn't feel it was a dream. I felt as if it was real. And so I went looking for that sand dune. And I went out of this town, Ratangarh in Rajasthan, lots of sand dunes there. And here and there looking, I didn't find Gandhi. I got lost. And anyway, in the end, I found my way back. And I've written about this in my book, Elegant Simplicity. But that day was such a challenging day that I cannot forget in my life, because I had become a monk for life. Once you are a monk in Jain, you are a monk for life. And I wanted to give up the monkhood. And then one night, after midnight, after a few days, I did run away and escape the monastery. But that was the most challenging decision that I have made in my life, to give up the monastic order and run away. And my mother, when I went to my mother, she was totally against my giving up the monastic order. And she said, go back to the monastery. You cannot come. She don't even give me a glass of water. And so then I went to a Gandhi ashram. And then I started my life as an activist. So sometimes in your life, you have to take such a big decision. And you said about you and my relationship of hardship and difficulty. For 10 years, again, like you and I, at least we were speaking to each other. For 10 years, my mother did not speak to me because I had given up my monastic order. For 10 years. Then after 10 years, she came to me where I was staying and knocked at my door, unannounced, without a letter, without a telephone call, knocked at my door and said, I've come to give you forgiveness. That was the most difficult thing in my life. I don't know if I told you this story.
No,
Yeah.
no, you haven't told
But
me
in
about
my
the
book.
dream.
It's in my
The
book,
dream.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And you asked me 2 questions, so I've got one more question.
Okay.
This is a difficult question, but is there a particular one or two of your happiest moments in your life?
Any?
One or two of your most happy moments
Most
of your
happy
life?
moment, yeah. One of the most happy moments of my life is meeting your mother. It was, how many, 48, 49 years ago?
I'm 46, so yeah.
Yeah, 40, so he's 46, so 47, 48 years ago. I was in London in a conference like this church, but more in the crypt of the church called St. Martin in the Fields. And I was standing again like Gandhi at the top, and I standing there. This time, Mukti's mother, my wife, June, she was at the top of the stairs, and I was at the bottom of the stairs, in the crypt of St. Martin in the Fields. And when she was coming, I saw her, and I said, this is the person of my life. The very first day, without speaking to her, without talking to her, I felt that this was the person of my life. And on that first day, because I was going to travel in Europe, that very first evening, I said to her, will you come with me? I'm traveling to Paris and Berlin and Amsterdam. She said, no, I'm too busy. And I had return ticket to go back to India. And I canceled my ticket. And I said, I'll find this person. And I did not take June's telephone number, or I did not take her address. I don't know how to find her. And then I tried to phone her office where she was working. And she was not going there. She was not well. But after 2 or 3 telephone calls, I found one person in that office, Operation Omega, who gave me June's address. And so without telling her, I went. And she was not well. She was living by herself. I said, you are not well, and nobody is looking after you. So I've come to look after you. I'll make you soup. So I went and bought some cabbage and some onions and made a soup for her. And so that, I think, is my happiest time of life, that I met somebody who has been with me now for 48 years, putting up with me. I'm not easy to live with. Very difficult person. And yet she has managed to live. And we still read poetry together. And that's another happiest moment, when we read poetry together. When I'm at home, every morning, from 7 to 8, we spend time together. And we read poetry. Love poetry, spiritual poetry, Hafiz, Rumi, William Blake. Many, many books we have read together. Zen, Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, spiritual books, poetic books, we read together. And then we garden together, and we cook together. So that way, we have been living together for 48 years. But meeting that one day in crypt of St. Martin in the Fields, the church in Trafalgar Square, was one of my happiest days.
Thank you.
And I'm still with her.
Thank you. Well done. Now,
Maybe we can ask people to ask.
Guillaume wanted us to talk a little bit about our relationship as
Okay.
father and son.
Okay,
So, how shall we start? Shall I start? Or would you like to start?
you start.
I start. Okay. Well, I know that the family relationships are not always easy, and I always love to hear about other people's problems. It always makes me feel much better. So I wanted to share a little bit about our journey. Satish and my mother worked very hard throughout my childhood, and maybe there was times when I wanted more and I expected more, and perhaps for a son, Satish has so many good qualities. I was very disappointed when I found out he wasn't perfect, and there was things, imperfect about him. So we've sometimes had a bit of struggle, and we had many years. So when I was 16, I started to smoke cigarettes and drink a lot of alcohol, and we were a lot of arguments.
Teenage problems.
Teenage problems. And we worked together successfully. I was marketing manager of the magazine for 5 years, and it was successful. The magazine grew a lot, but we had quite a difficult time for a few years. And then eventually, I sometimes get very upset with Satish flying, for example. But when I sat here today and I listened to Satish, I was crying. And sometimes, Satish, you touch me when I hear you speak. You touch my heart so much, it makes me cry. And so I know you've touched so many hearts all over the world, so I don't really have the right to judge you. But this has been, something that I get very upset of, Satish flying airplanes, etc. So one time we didn't speak for 6 months, and Satish came with June and said, "So what are we going to do now?" And I said, "We need mediation." And Satish said, "Okay, yes, I'll go to mediation." June said, "Oh, no, I don't want to do that." So, and we had mediation. We had 3 counseling sessions, and we learned how to talk. And Satish was very kind. I asked Satish about his childhood, and I found that the difficult times, the areas in my life where I felt he was a bit cold to me, I found was the areas, the times related to the times in his life where his mother wasn't there or his father wasn't there. So that listening to his life gave me a lot of understanding and compassion. And then we learned to have a conversation. Whenever one of us gets upset, we ring up the other and say, "Well, we need to have a conversation." And it's called Beginning Anew. And in Beginning Anew, you start with, I say 3 things that I appreciate about Satish. Satish says 3 things he appreciates about me. I say 1 thing that I regret. He says 1 thing he regrets. And then we have a conversation. And that basis, once you've heard those things from the other person, you can talk about quite deep things, and it's very successful. So slowly, by having conversations, and Satish was very kind, he listened to some of the things I was unhappy about in my childhood, etc. So I got them off my chest. And gradually, we started to become really good friends. Until now, you are one of my best friends. I feel very lucky to have you still. So that's my
in the Indian tradition. In the Indian tradition, we say that when the son is grown up and the daughter is grown up, they are no longer your children; they are your friends. So you are my friend, and I believe and I think truly that Mukti is much more practically practicing ecological lifestyle, low carbon lifestyle, more perfectly than I am. So I admire Mukti, more practicing, being the change much more than I. And therefore, some of my old habits and some of my old thinking, and sometimes I find it very difficult to say no to somebody like Vandana Shiva, for example, or somebody who is very dear friend, and they want me to go and give it, or like even Guillaume. Sometimes I say, Guillaume, I'm getting old, I have been coming every year, maybe next time I'll come every other year or something. But I find it difficult to say, dear friends like Vandana, like Guillaume, to say no to them. And so I go to India by plane. But I do feel not good about it, because I think that Mukti is absolutely right, that we should reduce our carbon emission and reduce our footprint on planet Earth. So I admire Mukti and I agree with Mukti, and I feel that I am not as practicing and perfectly good low carbon lifestyle as Mukti, and you saw his program, which I totally admire. So this is a kind of little bit of tension that we have, but as Mukti says, we are good friends, and we understand each other, and we forgive each other.
And you touch people's hearts, Satish.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
touch my heart, and that, who knows how important that is. I'm learning. I just picked up a book for my travel, and said the book is called Ego is the Enemy. So I'm reading the book, and yes, who am I to judge anybody? So this, hopefully.
Yeah.
And do you have any reflections on our relationship and the time
I mean, the thing is
healing
that
our relation?
I think it is not possible to have all the time a good relationship and not have any difficulties. So the relationship between you and I, whenever there have been difficulties, I've not seen as something negative. I've seen it as it's a part of living, part of growing up. When you are growing up, you have to feel free, you have to think freely, you don't have to say, yes, yes, daddy, all the time, yes, 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 then you will not be free. And your name is Mukti. Mukti means freedom. And so whenever you and I had difficult time, I thought, this is good that we have some difficult time. It is good that Mukti wants freedom. It is good that he wants to do his own way and not listen all the time and say yes, yes to me. So I have taken those difficult times as a part of living and a part of our relationship, and not think that it should always be smooth, so always should be no problem. That's not life. Life always goes ups and down, and difficulties are part of life, and difficulties make you stronger. If your difficulty between you and I relationship has made us stronger, and our relationship is now deeper. So I don't think I fear or I see difficult relationship as a negative. I think it's a part of growing up, part of becoming strong and more resilient.
Thanks.
We have got about 5 minutes. Have we got about 5 minutes? So maybe if anybody would like to ask any question from the audience. Anybody would like to ask any question to Mukti? Yes, Albert, there.
I was actually asking the question to my friends because I was wondering. So I hope it's not. Yeah, it's. So I was wondering when you were not happy because he was flying on a plane, right? So I wondered, like, in the end, the goal is to reduce the total emissions of carbon on the Earth, right? It doesn't really matter the way, as long as they are reduced, no? So why couldn't you do something like, for example, he could go by plane and he could buy a train ticket to a friend that would take the train ticket instead of flying if they give it to him for free. So the balance is the same, you know? Or he could, you know, I don't know, use a little bit of money to reduce the carbon somehow, like to compensate for this plane. But why would you want specifically that Satish doesn't fly in the plane? Like, wouldn't there be another solution like this?
Maybe, and you're right. I do carbon footprinting and carbon accounting. Actually, Satish's plane ticket, which is 800 kilos of CO2 to come from England to here and back, if it's split between everyone in this room, on your ticket, it's about 2 kilos each. And we're each using about 27 kilos a day, so if it's worth it for everybody here to have Satish come here, 2 kilos each, that's quite manageable.
All of you flying to England.
Yeah. Also, I'm not saying that I'm right in thinking that, but there's sometimes I feel Satish is such an important example, and he has so much influence, like other people as well, that the example is so important now, that the examples are set, that we got to practice, not just talk. Now the planet needs us to practice. So I think if Satish, the most famous thing Satish did was walk from India, and that had such an effect. So I think if Satish didn't fly, it would have such an effect. But I'm not saying I'm right. That is what I have sometimes thought.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other question? One more question. Okay, there. There. Keep your arm up. Yeah. Yeah, there.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you so much for coming here with plane or by foot. I'm here with my daughter, and it's absolutely wonderful. I love it here in this surrounding. Something is not really convincing me, which is you're talking about your son being your friend. Your son is your son. My daughter's my daughter. She doesn't belong to me. From the beginning, she never belonged to me. But I still consider her my daughter, and she always will, even if I'm 80 or 90. I think there is quite a difference of a friend and a family member. I don't know.
It depends what you mean by friend and what you mean by son and what you mean by daughter. All these are words, but meaning. When you have, say, this is my son, then there are some expectations. This is my daughter. You have some expectations from your daughter, and daughter has some expectations from you. So there is a kind of expectations, whereas friendship is pure, has no expectations. You are friend because you friend. And there's no, I don't expect Mukti to behave in this way or that way or do this or do that or have a good job or not good job, be successful, not successful. I have no judgment. It's his life. I love him not as my son. I love him as a human being now. I don't have any expectation. But I think that when I say this is my son, and therefore he should be good, he should be successful, he should have this, he should have that, he should behave like this. So those expectations, even I say to my wife, who is now, we are married for 48 years, but I don't say, you are my wife. I always say, you are my friend. So friendship is pure relationship. There's purity. There is no expectation and more acceptance. I accept Mukti as he is, warts and all. Doesn't matter what he something I don't agree or don't like about him. Doesn't matter. I love him as he is. But when you say my son, there's more expectation. My daughter, my wife, more expectation. So I like to rise above expectations and love Mukti, June, everybody without expectation and without any judgment, without any limit, without any conditions. That's my understanding of friendship. But if you have a different meaning, and if you think there is a more intimacy between daughter and mother, or son and father, then he is my son, of course. There's no denying about it. And I say to, when Mukti's birthday comes and I write to him a birthday card, or I say, I'm delighted to be your father. This is my honor to be your father. I'm not denying our relationship as a father and son. We are, of course, because that's kind of blood relationship, and that's a kind of, we are. But I want to rise above that expectation. And I don't expect anything. I say, you are you. You do what you want to do. This is your life. And if you want my advice, I give you advice. If you want my help, I'm here. If you want my support, I'm here for you. But I have no control over you. That's all my understanding of friendship. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
You want to
Very
say
good.
anything?
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people here will share, but you're 83, you'll be here for many more years, I think, but not forever. And I just wanted to say, for me personally, but on behalf of a lot of people, thank you for being our teacher. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your teachings.
Thank you.
You taught me a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bueno, pues gràcies i fin demà. Que descanseu bé.
Thank you very much. Rest well, and we'll see you here tomorrow. Thank you.
Sí, millor tornar. Sí. Sí.